Yet another year has gone by in our lives, yet another video has to be made about it. Hello, welcome one and all to our obligatory yearly recap. 2023, the year Avengers Endgame takes place, along with Five Nights at Freddy's 3, I think? I honestly don't even know anymore. 2023 may be long over, but that does not mean it's too late to look back on it. And I'm not too sure about all of you guys, but for me personally, 2023 was a turbulent roller coaster ride of mostly pleasant surprises. 22 was already crazy enough, but I could have never even imagined a year as game-changing and wild as 2023 to follow it. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. Not everything went down as nicely as I or everybody else would have wanted it to be, but I think it's worth highlighting the good memories that at least I made last year. That being said, this time around I'm gonna keep things rather simple. I don't feel the need to discuss everything that happened in the world this year. You know, all the drama and box office bombs, Twitter stupidly turning into X, content farms and AI slithering their way into our lives, submarine failures, Grimace shakes, YouTube CEO replacements, and something Donald Trump. A lot of those more broad and ultimately more mainstream subjects can be saved for a discussion in a future revisited episode, whenever I get around to start doing those again. I'd much rather just shed some light on the things that personally affected me the most, all the recent developments in my life, and what I'll most likely remember this year for the most. And with no more procrastination, let's dive right in. Now, if you recall correctly, 2022 was so overcrowded with stuff happening that it could very well make a person's head spin, especially if you were me in particular. And while 2023 was also a very busy, jam-packed, and important time for me, it felt more open for me to do my own thing, and the overall ratio of good to bad stuff going down in it was skewed for the better. It left me feeling generally a lot more happy. Heck, I think it actually ended up being the most important year for me. It surprisingly felt like my year, after 2021 and 22 sorta almost got there, but fell short a little. And by far the biggest reasons for that were the two most major personal developments of the year that anybody my age will eventually face: college and a job. Yes, early this year, I did indeed start taking classes at a certain local community campus. And while I won't exactly say where, just yet at least, for privacy reasons, I can safely say that I've generally enjoyed my time there and have learned many new things while feeling like I'm welcomed into a larger community full of great people. Sure, it can be a bit stressful and overwhelming at times, but I'm excited to see where this new direction in my life will take me, as I should be. Meanwhile, I also joined the workforce. A brand new Chicken Guy location, you know, the fast food restaurant based around Guy Fieri, opened up in my town, and ever since opening day, I've worked as an expo there, bagging up the food and taking customers' orders, and while it's definitely had its sour days and low points, not even sure if I should actually be saying these things right now, it's obviously become an essential part of my weekly routine that I've come to appreciate, and it was my first big taste in the world of being an adult. I'll actually be sad to find myself eventually leaving it someday in favor of whatever comes next. And I'll never forget the memories and mild friendships I've made there. A big thanks to all the coworkers and customers I've met during my time there. You've all made a little difference in my life. And before you ask, no, I've still not gotten to meet Guy Fieri himself yet. Speaking of things that have made a difference in my life, my parents took me on my first ever trip to the state of Hawaii last October. We started on the island of Oahu, then we went to Kauai, and then finally Maui. And throughout all of it, I got to ride a helicopter and countless planes, explore battleships and mountain ranges, enjoy luau shows and the amenities of these gorgeous villas, and drink a ton of pog juice. Not to brag or anything. I actually documented the entire trip on video for you guys, but I never got around to uploading it in a big compilation vlog video. But maybe now I actually will. But on to other more broad subjects. We had a few deaths that really hit me hard. Bob Barker, Paul Rubens, Tony Bennett, Jimmy Buffett, Treat Williams, Andre Braugher, who most of you know from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I personally knew him as the captain from Poseidon. And beloved YouTuber Shafrillis Productions ended up in a car accident. He thankfully came out alive, but his friend and brother sadly did not. May you all rest in peace. And up to this point, I have failed to mention this, but I also discovered last year that my old online friend Anna from England, who was once known as WilliamAfton.exe but then later changed to Anna Ridley Studios, had passed away. She was a majorly supportive piece to helping out in the early days of my YouTube channel, and was overall a humorous and great friend to me, and I hadn't learned of her passing until months after the fact, as we hadn't spoken in a good while. Just a reminder to try to stay in contact with people you care about because you never know when they're going to be taken away from you. Anna, if you're watching this from up above, just know that you are certainly still missed and will never be forgotten. Thank you for all that you have done for me. On a much lighter note, for my personal video game interests, FNAF Security Breach got its much superior DLC Ruin, and we also got the VR FNAF game Help Wanted 2.
Help Wanted 2! Help Wanted 2! Help Wanted 2! Oh my god!
And while I've kinda moved on from it by now, I think it would be pretty wrong of me to not bring up a certain laughable amateur horror, if you can even call it that, video game series called Garten of Banban. This year was absolutely flooded with these stupid games coming in and taking over the indie horror scene, and I, completely ironically mind you, latched onto them, with their awkward humor, foolish developers, and weak attempts to be scary, though the humor I have gained from it has definitely worn off over time. 3 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, that just doesn't have the same effect anymore. And let's not forget that Lightning McQueen was friggin' added to Rocket League. How cool is that? On the show side of things, we dinosaur fanatics were gifted with the majestic, prehistoric Planet 2, the wonderful follow-up to one of, if not my very favorite paleo documentary ever, though there has been crap like Dinosaur with Stephen Fry.
This is an Allosaurus. Weighs in at 2.5 tons.
5 minutes later.
So our Allosaurus here is 15 tons.
Movies in general, meanwhile, were a real mixed bag in 2023. We had Barbenheimer, Godzilla -1, Megan, Mithrigan, whatever.
Cocaine Bear!
That Transformers movie that barely anybody went to see, the disappointment that was 65, all of Disney's countless blunders and big L's this year, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which I actually went to go see in theaters with a friend of mine, more on him later. And the list just goes on and on, maybe a little too far on, honestly. But out of everything released, the following were the main standouts for me, what I had the strongest emotional attachment to. This year, I finally got around to watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on a plane ride to Hawaii, and I, unsurprisingly, fell in love with it, which obviously led me to checking out this year's sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, which was so breathtaking that it's gotten me hooked for the grand final part, Beyond the Spider-Verse now. We also received the love letter to fans and middle finger to Disney from James Gunn himself, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the seemingly final installment in what has been my favorite cornerstone of the MCU. And with it ending things on such an emotional and satisfactory note, it feels like the perfect point for me to finally leave the modern MCU behind. I mean, what else is there left to be excited for? Kang or something? Oh, never mind, spoke too soon. Timothée Chalamet's Wonka, meanwhile, I was really worried about going in, believing it would just turn out to be some distasteful, needless origin story for the most famous character from one of my favorite intellectual properties, yet it ended up being one of the most sweet and wholesome things I've seen in a long time. My video on it should come out sometime later this year, don't worry. And that leaves us with the big kahuna, the final boss that I waited 8 years of my life for, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Boy oh boy, while yes I still indeed have my qualms with it alright, seeing my favorite video game series finally getting its due on the big screen was something else, I'll tell ya. And while my opinion on it has continued to fluctuate, it'll remain as the biggest cinematic highlight of 2023 for me, and for tons of others. And I'm just glad that my experience of watching it for the first time went as decently as it did. Thank God this wasn't another Jurassic World Dominion situation again. And as you could probably tell, it was a crazy year to be a FNAF fan. On the flip side of things with YouTube, I discovered and fell in love with a handful of new content creators, such as the Dino Facts and the Mascot Horror Squad of Demuted, Dags, the baddest, wholesome little Pastra himself, and of course, the Purple Dog Detective himself, yeah.
Hey, you guys are watching Bird Up, the worst show on television.
And on top of that, I made sure to jump onto the bandwagon for the pilot episode of what is now my favorite online original indie animation series, Gooseworks' The Amazing Digital Circus. Please support this show as much as you can, guys. Help to get a full season of it up and running. Not to mention my beloved Ireland boys had their second overnight challenge marathon, the newly rebranded Mr. Docket helped inform us Disney Cars collectors of the upcoming diecast releases with his case reveals, and so many old favorite faces came back out of hiding. However, 2023 nearly took away a certain someone who was very near and dear to me. Not literally though, this isn't a Shefferless production situation again, thank goodness. But regardless, that someone being one of my favorite YouTubers, the Unlucky Tug. Due to very frustrating copyright strikes and Google systems, the Tugman lost his old channel back in March. Sadly, he never got it back, meaning all those years of development and progress were gone. Fortunately though, he just restarted with a new channel by re-uploading most of his old videos, and continuing to pump out banger content just like beforehand, and things seem to be going much better for him ever since, and thank goodness too. But that little incident will forever help to sour my outlook on YouTube and their bloody little systems for the rest of my days. Okay, what else? Oh, at a nearby annual carnival event, I stumbled upon fellow YouTuber Connor TV, who apparently is the boyfriend of a sibling of an old classmate of mine? Huh, now ain't that special. Due to prior dentist negligence, I've had to get a ton of dental work done, how financially fun. I got a brand new laptop, perfect for gaming, homework, and potentially video creation. We'll see where that goes. And man, do I already feel so much more free with it now. After years of being shut down, the Detroit incinerator plant was demolished, and while it was ultimately for the best, of course, it did kind of break the heart of my inner child, as my family would pass by it every Friday while driving to my godfather's house across town when we're going over this big bridge, and I developed a slight attachment to it due to its superficial physical similarities to a certain chocolate factory that I know of. Farewell, Detroit Incinerator. I'll be the one person out there who will actually want to remember you. Anyways, after Christmas, my family went out to Illinois, not Wisconsin actually, for a few days to see some old friends and relatives. And yes, as you might have predicted earlier on, I did indeed get a Sterling for the Sterling family. Har 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 tee hee hee. And speaking of Cars diecasts, I might as well share how my collecting hobby went last year. Now, partially due to the advent of being able to order cars online again, and very much so thanks to a much better yearly lineup of releases from Mattel this time around, 2023 was a fantastic year for purchasing cars again for me, which is a really strong turnaround considering how low the year prior made me feel in this regard. Seriously, I went like months without finding anything new in 2022. And I think this perfectly segues into one of my last topics for today, that being the discovery of, and my new friendship with, a certain fellow cars collector from my area. You may have heard of him. He goes by, oh, I don't know, the Traffic Light. But really, his actual name is... One day when I was going through a Cars Community Discord server, I realized that another user was visiting the same Walmart as me, and following that, the two of us met up several times, immediately sparked a friendship, and have had our backs for each other ever since, having fun conversations, watching movies, and getting cars for each other. Just all around, a big thank you to the Traffic Light for everything you've done for me. I really do mean it. And last of all, I want to bring up my YouTube channel. I'm more than well aware that my upload frequency here has dropped significantly lately, and I am trying to work on it, but despite that, I'm still very proud of my work last year, and all of your kind words and support have truly made a world of difference for me. Thank you all so very much for being such a nice audience. And now, I think I've effectively hit all the main highlights of 2023 for me. Remember, if we went over everything that happened last year, we'd be here for several hours. But as you can tell, it was quite the eventful and packed year, full of mostly positive memories, regardless of everything else going on in the world. And I was there for it all with my hands up in the air, ready to embrace whatever surprises were in store for me, instead of just dwelling on how much better the past was or something. As a very wise woman once told me,
Call me crazy, but I think that as soon as And the present is where things happen. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's glorious. And it's always the place to be. Because life happens in the present. One second to the next. And if you're living with one foot in the past, well, you're missing a fucking foot.
And when considering what important developments in my life occurred this year, 2023 seemed like a great start to this next chapter of my life. Now, I'm hoping that the rest of 2024 will turn out to be just as thrilling, though so far it seems to be just more of the same with a couple of curveballs thrown in. Feel free to tell me how your 2023 was though, and I'm sorry that this video has taken so dang long to come out. Hopefully someday I'll make sure one of these yearly recaps actually gets made during the year they're focusing on. But anyways, I will see you all in whatever my next video will be. Take care and bye-bye!